Okay, Prynhawn da, good afternoon. Croeso, welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us this very hot afternoon. I hope you all have a cool drink in hand of your choice and feeling comfortable. I'm Sarah Jones. I work for Cadno Communications. We're a Welsh communications agency which is supporting Trydan Cymru on its proposed Glyn Cothi Wind Farm project. For the next hour or so, we will be looking at how ecology is being considered as Trydan develops its plans for Glyn Cothi. And this session has been offered specifically to local environmental organisations with specialist knowledge. And the purpose of the session is to provide you with an update on the project and to inform you about the ecological surveys which are being undertaken and are planned, as well as the emerging findings. So in terms of the agenda, we're going to hear from David Thomas first. He's the project manager for Glyn Cothi, followed by the specialists, the ecological specialists who are working on the project. And we really want to hear from you as well. So there'll be time at the end for a question and answer session. We've allowed plenty of time for that. So as the speakers are going through their slides, please think of any questions that you've got. Please post the questions in the Q&A box. So to access that, if you look at the top of your screen, there's a box that says Q&A. So if you click on that, you can add your question there. If you look in that box and see that somebody has already posted a question that you were thinking of, you can click on the little arrow next to it to upvote it, and then that will bring that question up to the top. That will show us then which are the most popular questions. And when we come to the questions at the end, we'll come to them in the order of the questions which are most popular and also in chronological order. For the purpose of today, we're going to have to prioritise questions which are about ecology, but if we've got time at the end, we'll come to any other general questions about the project. So after the event, we will also be sharing a link to a feedback form where you can give us some more detailed feedback, which will be used by the team. Then to wrap up, we'll have some closing remarks and we'll aim to finish by 2 p.m. at the latest. So I'll hand over to David now, who's going to give you an overview of the project.
Thank you, Sarah. Diolch am ymuno gyda ni ar y webinar hwn p'nawn 'ma. Thank you for joining us on this webinar. My name is David Thomas and I am the project manager for the Glyn Cothi project, and it is my role to take the project through the development phase and up to construction. Firstly, I will give an overview of Trydan. So Trydan Cymru is the Welsh government-owned renewable energy developer dealing with onshore wind and solar, developing projects predominantly on the public estate, primarily on the NRW managed woodlands. If you can go back, Sarah. It's skip forward. Yeah, if you can stay on that one for now. Our strapline is ynni funny, power to prosper, which refers to how renewable energy can give the people of Wales, who are our only shareholders, the power to prosper, with a focus on long-term public value, not short-term profit. Trydan was officially launched in July 2024 by the then Economy and Energy Secretary, Jeremy Miles, in the photo alongside our Chief Executive, Richard Evans. If we go on to the next slide, please. So Trydan's mission is to unlock the renewable energy potential of Wales and deliver benefits to our society, our environment and our economy for everyone living and working in Wales today and for future generations. I would like to stress the point, for it is relevant to this webinar, that it is part of our mission to deliver environmental benefits alongside the delivery of renewable energy projects. Furthermore, as our projects will primarily be on the NRW managed woodland estate, we will be embedding the concept of sustainable management of natural resources, SMNR, into these projects. More on this in the next slide. Trydan's remit from Welsh Government is to deliver renewable energy projects, starting with the Welsh public estate, with the best possible long-term economic and social benefits for the people of Wales. Trydan's goals are to develop 1 gigawatt of new renewable energy generation capacity by 2040, and be an exemplar developer working with the wider industry and communities. Next slide, please. So in practical terms, SMNR means using natural resources in a way and at a rate that maintains and enhances resilient ecosystems and the benefits they provide, while meeting the needs of current generations without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. NRW assesses progress towards SM&R through 4 principles: safeguarding and enhancing natural resources, building resilient ecosystems, creating healthy places for people and reducing environmental risks, and supporting a regenerative economy with sustainable production and consumption. Next slide, please. So, since last summer, Trydan Gwynf has launched 4 projects: Ecology in North Wales, Gwen in Rhondda and Taff, Larnog Solar Farm in Fferm Wynt and Glyn Cothi in Sir Gar, Carmarthenshire. These 4 projects have the potential to deliver over 400 megawatts of generating capacity. Go to the next slide, please. So, as follows is an overview of the Glyn Cothi project. It is a proposed onshore wind farm development located in Breckford Forest, northeast of Carmarthen. It is currently in the design development stage. For context, there is a previous planning consent, now expired, covering the east side of the site for 12 turbines consented in December 2013. Also, the site is fully contained within a pre-assessed area for wind energy, PAA, as defined by Future Wales 2040, the Welsh Government's National Development Plan. Next slide, please. So the project is predominantly contained within commercial forestry. Whilst the design is at an early stage and yet to be fixed, the scope is currently for the following: up to 27 wind turbines, up to 230 metre tip height, indicative installed capacity of 162 megawatts, new and upgraded access tracks within the forest and cabling, substation and up to 10 megawatts of battery storage, wooden pole grid connection to a new national grid substation proposed near Llanderfeilog, and habitat management works and recreational and access improvements. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the wider context of the location. There is an existing wind farm within the commercial forestry of Breckford Forest West, to the west of the site, obviously, comprising 28 turbines built by RWE and commissioned in 2018. There is another smaller wind farm further west towards the A485 known as Allwallis Wind Farm, comprising 10 turbines commissioned in 2009. There are a number of settlements around the site: Llanybubber to the north, Breckford and Abergorlich to the south, Rhyd Cymerau to the east. Access to the site will be from the A485 to the west and over the common of Mynydd Llanllwni and Mynydd Llanybubber. The exact route is yet to be finalised. Next slide, please. So why undertake the project? What are the benefits would the project deliver? Equivalent to the annual electricity needs of 144,000 Welsh homes, CO2 saving of 190,000 tonnes per year, environmental and biodiversity improvements, recreational and access improvements, significant capital investment benefiting the local and regional economy, local benefits from community benefit funding, over £800,000 per annum, jobs during construction and over the 35-year operational life. And on to the final slide from me, please. So finally, on the project timeline, in 2024, we started the early design work and feasibility and commencement of the ornithology surveys. In July last year, we did the public launch of a project, followed by informal public consultation on the early stage plans in November 25. This spring and summer has been about the ecological surveys, which we'll obviously come on to as part of this webinar. And then come the autumn and winter this year, it'll be about preparation of the environmental impact assessment and the IC application. Spring 27, we anticipate undertaking the statutory pre-application consultation, followed by the submission of the application to PEDU for infrastructure consent in mid-2027. We then anticipate through autumn and then into summer 2028, the examination period with PEDU, with a possible planning decision in mid-2028. If it's consented, we'll be looking at the detailed design and procurement phase through 2029 and a construction commencement in 2030 running through to 2032, and then power generation starting soon after that, subject to grid connection. So if I can pass on to Jess now, please, Sarah, to go into the EIA details. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. So my name's Jess Pearce and I work for LUC, which is Land Use Consultants, and we're working on behalf of Trydan to produce the EIA Environmental Impact Assessment for Glyn Cothi. You're obviously all here to hear more about ecology than EIA, so I'll keep it quite brief, just an overview of what our role is in this and what we're doing. So as you'll all probably know, EIA, the purpose of it is to identify potential significant impacts of the proposed project, and it's part of the planning application for significant infrastructure projects such as wind farms like Glyn Cothi. So we are involved in kind of the design process of that as well, and one of our roles is to try and produce the best design possible to reduce environmental impacts on the environment. So we coordinate at LUC all of the environmental surveys that are going on and have lots of technical specialists on the ecology side who are on the call today, but also across a lot of other different disciplines. And we kind of collate all that data and try and design a good scheme. So what we've done so far in the EIA process, we submitted a scoping report to PEDU at the back end of last year, October 25, and received the scoping direction back last month in late May. So we're just working through all the comments that have come through from the statutory consultees and also some members of the public through that process. And that is leading to some sort of ongoing consultation. So some of you on the call have probably been contacted by various members of our team already in terms of consulting with you on survey scopes, methodologies and assessment methodologies as well to ensure that we're covering everything that we need to. As David has said, we're also currently in the design phase, so all the surveys that are ongoing that you'll hear about are informing our design workshops. We've had 2 so far, with more in the calendar coming up. And part of that is also us looking at access to the site. As David has said, there's potential access across the common, so our surveys do include the area of common land, and we do have a common land consultant on board as well. And then I guess the main other thing to note from the EIA perspective as part of the planning application is that we will be doing a HMP, habitat management plan, and part of this call is to get some ideas from you guys who have joined on what you would like to see involved in that, and also we'll be working with NRW's energy delivery team, who are the landowners of this development as well, to kind of formulate those plans with them and make sure that they're proportionate and also achievable in terms of their management of the site going forward. So that's it from me, and I'll hand over to, I think it's Ecology next with Jess and Katie.
It is Ecology. Thanks, Jeff.
Yes.
Hi there, my name's Katie Luxmore. I'm an Associate Director of Ecology. We've got a large ecology team at LUC based in Cardiff and Bristol for this project with a range of different specialists. And we've been working on this project since last year, collecting baseline data. So we've got a range of different species surveys going ahead. It's a very interesting and varied site, is what we're finding. So we've got phase 1 habitat and NBC surveys taking place across the site. We've got surveys for bats, badger, otter, watervole, hazel dormouse, pine marten, red squirrel and great crested newt as well. So far we've collected phase 1 habitat and NBC survey data for the turbine area, and data for the potential access routes is ongoing. We've also commenced survey work for bats, dormice, badger and great crested newt. And we've got further surveys for other protected species ongoing in the summer. I believe we've already consulted some of you on this webinar about red squirrel and pine marten survey scopes. So far in terms of findings, as I said, it's still fairly early stage, but in terms of habitats, we've found that the site is predominantly coniferous woodland, obviously, but it's quite interesting in that it's weaved with areas of deciduous woodland and ancient woodland as well. So that's a key focus of our design and mitigation as well. There are a few small areas of acid flush, and there's one area of potentially modified bog, but these are fairly limited in size, and so our design has been focusing on avoiding these areas. And then we've also got areas of recently cleared plantation, areas of scrub and small amounts of heathland. In terms of the protected species, it's still early stage, but we've got the results back from our spring bat activity surveys. And what we're finding so far is that it's predominantly common pipistrelle calls and other pipistrelle species. Thankfully, at the moment, predominantly low-flying species. So we've got some brown long-eared calls as well, but very small amounts of higher flying species like noctua and Leisler and Nethesius pipistrelle. And so that's something that we'll continue to monitor as we get the summer and autumn data coming through. We have seen a pine marten on the site, and we've also seen badger. So we know those species are present, and we know from consultation and records that the species are present, as well as one death study record for a red squirrel within the site boundary as well. This was a dead record. And then in terms of opportunities, as just mentioned, we will be doing a habitat management plan, and there are many different opportunities across the site, which is quite exciting. So good opportunities to provide net benefit for biodiversity. Among those could be heathland restoration, creation, enhancement of deciduous woodland, looking at habitat connectivity as well, and provision of species-specific enhancements. And we would welcome any ideas that you have on these. On to ornithology.
Thank you. Yes, ornithology with Ian Mackenzie.
Afternoon, everybody. Hi, I'm Ian Mackenzie. I'm Director of Ecology with LUC, and I lead our ornithology service. I'm based up in Glasgow, but I've been overseeing some of the work we've got down in Wales, largely because the issues with wind farms in these kind of habitats are pretty similar across the UK. So our team are applying the lessons learned across the UK to this site. We've been working since May 2024 on the site. We're due to finish in August 2026, so in a couple of months. We're doing a range of surveys. They're largely dictated by quite detailed guidance on the information that you need on birds to make an assessment of effects of wind farms on bird populations. So we're working our way through that, those sort of various surveys according to that guidance. We've been doing flight activity surveys, which is sitting and watching birds in flight. That information is to input to collision risk modelling. It's one of the most well-known impacts of wind farms on birds, and that will allow us to provide collision estimates. That's the bulk of the work that we do. But on top of that, we've been doing raptor surveys, surveys for nightjars, and some more specialist surveys based on knowledge we picked up along the way, including work on willow tits. So far, flight activity has been found to be relatively low compared to many other sites. That's quite typical for habitat of this kind. So we're not expecting much of an impact on collision risk for the bird populations that are present. Our raptor surveys have found goshawk to be breeding at least 6 territories, possibly 7. We'll round those surveys off this year. We've got a robust nightjar population in the forest. They're found largely in areas that have been managed. They're part of the woodland rotation that opens up the ground, and it's a bit less densely forested. Plenty of nightjars exploiting those habitats. And willow tits have also are found to be present in quite restricted distribution in quite specific habitats. And that rather uninspiring photograph is actually doesn't look lovely, but it is lovely for willow tits. It's the kind of habitat they're using within Brecca Forest. So we're following up on that. The work on willow tits specifically is largely feed into the habitat management plan, the biodiversity enhancement that Katie spoke about. It links into some wider objectives across the NRW forest estate. Obviously, NRW have got a certain amount of responsibility for enhancing biodiversity across their estate. So it's nice to be able to feed into that and create some or maintain and create a bit more of this kind of habitat for willow tit, which are red listed species and in decline. Similarly, nightjar will become a target for habitat management as well, although the fact that they're doing very well in this bit of woodland anyway, just based on the way the forest is being managed and has been managed over the last few decades, is great. So we're really just looking to dovetail with existing forest plans to ensure nightjar are catered for over the next few decades as well. I think that's me. Sarah, I'm not sure who's next, so I'll hand over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Ian. So it's arboriculture next with Karen. Thanks,
yes,
Karen.
Good afternoon all. So I'm Karen O'Shea, so I'm the Director of Arboriculture in the LUC team. We're working on the project to advise on woodland and arboricultural matters which are separate to forestry. We have had two of my team members have been to site to carry out some initial high-level surveys of two areas known to be ancient woodland. One is designated as ancient semi-natural woodland, and the other is plantation on ancient woodland that you hear referred to as PAWS. For anyone that doesn't know, these both are classified as ancient woodlands, which means they both occur on land that has been continuously wooded, sorry, excuse me, since at least 1600s in England and Wales. But they differ mainly in that ancient semi-natural woodland is made up of trees and shrubs native to the site, usually arising from natural regeneration, whereas plantations on ancient woodlands are areas of former native tree cover that has been felled and replaced by planted trees and are usually non-native species to the site. What we have found during our survey work is a semi-natural woodland is a mix of broadleaf and Sitka spruce plantation compartments. There's some narrow lines of mixed broadleaf trees to the edge near towards the road. More centrally is a mature area of broadleaf trees comprising of oak, willow and hazel, grown inside a valley with a small stream running through. Within the western area of the semi-natural ancient woodland is a section of semi-mature oak and birch with the occasional Sitka spruce. The remaining sections were forestry stands abutting the tracks. In the PAWS woodland, in the plantation woodland, it was mainly comprised of compartments of semi-natural conifers, including Sitka spruce, Norway spruce and fir species, with a few small pockets of semi-mature broadleafs, including oak, hazel, willow and silver birch. This woodland has many existing tracks that run through from the north to the south with multiple hairpin bends in places towards the south end. And it's been noted that around the southern end, the trees tend to be of a younger age around the bends in the track. There's also a small stream that also runs to the east of the existing track where there are more broadleaf species of goat willow, birch, hazel and occasional Sitka. Both are important woodlands, and it's understood by the whole project team that these will need consideration into design. So where possible, they can be avoided, or the loss of trees within the woodlands or any work that could be detrimental is minimised. We know there are existing tracks through these woodlands, particularly more within the PAWS. However, we would need to do more survey work to understand if these can provide any opportunities. As the discussions develop on design work, it will be important to undertake more in-depth focused tree and woodland surveys in certain areas so we can work together to find some solutions as the project progresses. That's me, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, so it's James Mortimer next, talking about peat.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Mortimer. I'm a director at Aquaterra Consultants, and we're supporting the project with all things peat and soils. Just to run through what we've found to date and where we're heading, really. So we've undertaken phase 1 peat surveys across the site over the last couple of years, generally spaced on a 100-metre grid. This includes both the turbine areas and the possible access route into site. To date, we've found very little peat on site, and where we have found it, they've tended to be isolated and discrete pockets associated with springs and flushes rather than a a broader habitat. As the design evolves, with the stepwise approach in mind, we very much avoid all peat, and that is our philosophy on the project. If we come across areas, small areas, which cannot be avoided, we'll move through to minimise. And I doubt we'll get as far as restoration, just because there's so little present on site. So definitely at the moment, the philosophy is to avoid peat and wherever possible. As we move forwards, we are currently actually on site. We have some additional surveys just to tighten up resolution in some areas due to either previous NRW no-go areas or just where the design has already started to evolve slightly. So those results will get fed back in. And as we move forward through to a fixed design, we will then be headed out for a much more detailed phase 2 survey, where we really tighten up the spacing of points, just to ensure that either our early data is correct, or if need be, provide some further tweaks to the design. So that's pretty much me on peat.
Thank you, James. Our last speaker will be Richard Curtis, who will talk about forestry. He's our last speaker, so while Richard's getting his slides ready, can I just encourage you to post any questions that you have in the Q&A box? We've only got one question so far, so please post any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Richard Curtis from Ark Woodlands, and I'm a forester looking at how any disruption caused by the project can be kept to a minimum in terms of forest management. So the data that we use for this is primarily NRW's own data, which is the subcompartment database, and you can see an example of it here on the slide. NRW use this to record all sort of information about the forest, so species, planting year, management types, and they use that to produce their forest resource plans. The red line boundary for the project contains about 2,500 hectares of woodland, and about 1,100 of this are Sitka spruce, with another 800 of other conifers, and about just over 300 of broadleaf trees, and that's of all types. So that can include ASNW and PORs also. Brefra is interesting. It's got some terrific features, the forest garden, and also down in Bergham there's an amazing stand of Douglas fir planted in 1929. And to assist us with minimising the disruption, NRW have some broad aims, and obviously the main one is to minimise permanent loss of woodland. In a woodland, if you're going to build something, that's obviously quite difficult. They do suggest using open areas, but there aren't tremendous amount of open areas within the site. So the main way of mitigating this is through compensatory planting. Then the other main factor for them is how we reduce the impact of any clearance for the project on the existing forest management. The primary way we do that is to see whether we can keyhole turbine locations, which means assessing the crop. And if it's wind firm, we can just cut the minimum area out for the turbine, and those trees will carry on growing around. But if it's not a wind firm crop, then you have to fell to a wider area, but then you can also replant back to the minimum area around the turbine. So those are the main points that NRW offer us through their design principles. So any questions would be great.
So David, is there anything you would like to cover off in terms of any closing remarks and the next steps for the project?
The only closing remark I'd like to make is obviously thank the participants who've joined and for contributing with questions. It is greatly appreciated, and I also want to thank the specialists who've taken time to prepare slides and and provide their contributions, and to yourself, Sarah, for chairing the webinar. And just finally, just kind of request that the feedback form is completed, because it will help us inform our next steps and kind of our work on this matter. So yeah, thank you.